Good day, good evening, hello viewers. My name is Sydney Winston. I'm an atheist activist out of Vancouver, Canada. It is June the 28th, 2021 for the record. It's just gone 6 p.m. That's p.m. in the evening. My temperature reading indoors, no, I shouldn't say indoors. My temperature reading for my area is 36 degrees Celsius. It's too hot. I'm not happy about it. But, be that as it may, that hasn't stopped people, young people, from deconverting out of Christianity, losing their religion. However, before we get into it, I kind of have to, and I hate to do this, but I kind of have to kind of apologize. Kind of apologize and also acknowledge that it's not easy. It's not easy to admit when I'm wrong. So what I'm trying to talk about is my slogan of Christianity is stupid. And it's the slogan itself that's the problem, not the contents of the slogan, I think. Well, the contents of the slogan, yes. But that doesn't change this. What needs to change is the slogan. So I have changed it. I will no longer use Christianity is stupid. I will use, instead, Christianity is fickle. Okay? It didn't just come about in an apparition on my way to Damascus. Nope. I am really I hate to tell you this story because it's just not a happy. Well, I, as you know, have been on this platform, on the Google Hangouts public platform for about 10 years. There was a time when, for a very long time, there were a certain group of us would hang together, like almost daily basis. And there was a fairly large group of people that we hung together with. One of them I was very friendly with. And she was at the time a born atheist. She was born into an atheist lifestyle and was an atheist. And made very good arguments for being an atheist, considering that she didn't need anything else, etc., etc. But to cut a long story short, this person is now a Christian. And I've asked her to join me for a conversation, and she has agreed. If you're online, you know who I'm talking about right now. I'll introduce you if you come if you make yourself known in the chat, and if you do that, I will open up a room. Other than that, I won't. Until then, I'm going to get into the reason for this stream in the first place, and that's to bring you another deconversion video. But I did want to humbly and meekly apologize to my friend who did suggest the change, by the way, and which is why the change is happening. It's not out of my sudden flash of forgiveness and humility and downright kind of childishness in a way, right? But it was brought to my attention by my very good friend who has the last contact we had, which was many years ago, I'll grant you that, was as an atheist. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and just as any and say this. Most every Christian in the later stages of their life, not the later stage, but post-adolescent, post-young adult stage of their life, most every one of them has come through some kind of a trauma or incident that has sent them reeling into the arms of Jesus. And these are usually life events that are traumatic. So I am presuming, in the case of my friend, that there was some kind of a life-altering traumatic catalyst that would propel anyone into the arms of Jesus from whatever situation you are in. If you got trauma and you've got the support that pushes you to Jesus, maybe that's how it happens. But irrespective, today we are going to listen to Wildwood Vagabond, who has a story to tell. And I'm certainly interested in hearing it. I'm certainly interested in adding it to the collection of deconversion stories. And I hope you're interested in listening to it as well. Time alert. This is roughly about just over 20 minutes in total, not including commentary. So set your life's schedule accordingly. Hang on.
I just wanted to share my quick story.
Hang on a second. I clicked the wrong button. Oh shit, I really clicked the wrong button. Hold on a second. Alright. I think I've clicked. This is an ad. I'm going to wait till the ad's finished. Ad's finished.
Huge transformation, and it was happening so
See, I've
rapid.
already listened to some of it, so I'm just going to bring it in again, alright?
This is going to be difficult.
Oh.
Okay. So, if you're new here, my name's Rachel. This is my channel, Wildwood Vagabond, and I have had this channel for almost 2 years. And when I started out this channel a couple years ago, I was still identifying as a Christian. I wasn't, at that time, I had already kind of in my heart, started the whole deconversion process, but I wasn't fully aware of it. A little backstory, I was one of those Christians who was charismatic, into it with your whole heart. I mean, eat, sleep, and drink Jesus. Jesus. Went to all the revivals and the conferences. I was a minister. I was in ministry in Finland. And I was one of those who woke up at 4:30 in the morning and I would pray for 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours before I would go to work and work a full day. And but yeah, so I was one of those, and I did it wholeheartedly and from my whole heart. And when I did ministry, I just want to say that when I did that, I genuinely did it from my whole heart. That is what I believed at that time, and I was just being a vessel at that time. And so I just don't want anybody that may know me from back then to see that and think that, maybe that wasn't genuine, because it definitely was. I've grown a lot and I'm different and I have evolved. I feel like I've evolved out of Christianity, if that makes sense. Christianity served a great purpose in my life. Some of you know that I have a really broken background. We're talking drug addiction, self-harm, and a lot of trauma, which had even led up to the drug addiction, and all that was the cause of all of that stuff. It just got so bad, and to the point that I was homeless, living on the streets with my daughter, had lost my son. It absolutely hit rock bottom. that's where my Christian story begins. I mean, I grew up in a family like that went to church, but we weren't like wholeheartedly into it. You know, my grandmother worked in a nursery and I went with her, and that was basically the extent of it. But when this was like, I really was converted into Christianity and went head first when I was 30. I don't know how old it was. It was in 2000.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is a trauma or traumatic background preceding finding Christ. So there's a pattern here, and you figure that Christ, even if Christ is not real, okay, they find solace in an idea, which I don't know why Christ is the solace, is the idea that finds solace in it. It's beyond me, considering what Christianity has come to represent. I mean, rather find solace in something peaceful, but that wasn't my choice, that was hers. So again, a very traumatic incident background has led to a meeting with Mr. Christ, who saves lives. Let's hear about it.
2007. So anyways, I have my notes here and I'm just going to go through because I feel like this is going to be difficult. This might be disappointing to some people, and I just want to say beforehand, like I'm sorry that this is disappointing to you, but this is my life. Just I ask you to respect me on my journey. I respect you on your journey. In this video, will I in no way bash Christianity or Christians, because at the end of the day, I feel like we're all just trying to find our way. So I'll respect your opinions and you respect mine. We don't have to agree that either are correct. I had hit rock bottom. A Christian family helped me and my daughter, and that's basically where it all started. And I was so desperate for change in my life that I literally gave everything that I had and put it into like serving God, and I turned completely around. And so many like miracles were happening in my life. I mean, crazy stuff. I was physically healed in my body, emotionally, like this deep healing was taking place, and I was just growing so quickly that I mentally couldn't even keep up with it. And it was just huge transformation, and it was happening so rapidly. And so I just was like, man, like I thought that I just needed to give my whole life to God. I went from being codependent on drugs to codependent on God. And that was just kind of like a natural like switch, I guess, back then. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but looking back now I know.
Wow, that is quite the statement there. I went from codependent on drugs to codependent on God. Now, make no mistake, drugs are evil. Being codependent on drugs is being codependent on an evil addiction. Now you switch that from drugs to Jesus, and the evil addiction switches from drugs to Jesus. So drugs being an evil addiction, Jesus being an evil addiction, there has to be a point of resolution, one would think. Let's find out. Let's listen in and see if there is.
Like that's definitely what I was doing, because back then I always searched for something external to bring me peace and happiness and sense of safety internally. I have since evolved from that to know that all that we could ever need is on the inside of us. We are the co-creators of our own reality, and we don't need something external to give us the power, to give us the will to do right. We can do that all on our own. I ended up getting involved really deeply into this Christian church that turned out to be more like a Christian cult. The leader was very controlling. Stuff was just like drilled in our heads just over and over and over and over and over. And, it all made sense back then. Like he had scriptures for everything. Everything made sense. Like it just was like, yes, like I take your word for it. I trust you. He was a man of God. Like I believed everything that he was saying, and he could prove it all with scripture, and it all made sense to me. And I was like, okay, yeah. But then thankfully, like my time in Finland, when I was in Finland, I was in ministry there. With my ex-husband, he was Finnish. We had prayer and worship meetings twice a week. And a lot of really cool things happened in those meetings. I stepped back from ministry because I was preaching a lot about love and God's grace and all of this stuff during that time. But at my home life was something completely different. It was just so much striving and just so it was just so toxic at home. And I mean, looking back, I was a huge problem and a huge culprit in that. But anyways, it takes two to tango. But there was just stuff that was going on behind.
All right. I gotta say something. I've got to say something. I want to point out a contradiction here. She just said that she was preaching love and God's grace, too difficult to accomplish. Yet, this young lady has admitted to, at the same time, having some serious problems at home. Which just, essentially why I interjected here is pretty much we've had a disconnection. We have had a disconnection, and it looks like a successful reconnection of my OBS Studio software. Okay, good. Looks like we're back. So, yeah, okay, so I don't know how much of it you got, but essentially, hypocritical factor here. Preaching grace and love and the grace of God and just love, and then at home it's the opposite situation of love. In other words, it's probably stress and anger and resentment and whatnot she hasn't said yet, but it's still a hypocritical situation. It's like going out to work, and wearing your work hat, and then and let's say you're a marriage counselor and you go to work and you counsel other people's marriage and you're a very good therapist, but at home your marriage is shit and you can't do anything about it. I guess it's kind of the same thing, except with Jesus it's in every home. Look at Shani and Jason. They got Jesus, and boy do they have problems.
Behind the scenes that I was like, I can't sit here and preach to these people about love and grace and all of this stuff when I can't even see it in my own household. So then I was like, okay, I don't want to be in ministry until I can sort all this stuff out. Being in Finland really gave me time away from our home church so that when I did come back, I had a new perspective. I kind of started to see things in a different light. And I had started to wonder why my preacher was all the time preaching the same topic, and it was just starting to be drilled into my head. And anytime that I would think differently or experience something differently, I would go to talk to him, and he would be he would explain it in this way, and it was just like, oh, like his way, you're like, oh, okay, yes, you are correct. What was I thinking? And I would leave, and I would just be like, yeah, what was I thinking? And then like 5 minutes later, I'd be like, something would click, and I would be like, wait, no, I know what I was thinking. I know that was right. So those type of situations started to happen a lot. Ended up getting kicked out of that church for asking, I don't know, just for thinking on my own, I guess. And I've never been one to like fully, I don't conform well.
Thinking alert, thinking alert.
I like to live and think and do outside the box. So apparently I was rebellious, and could be true. But yeah, so he became like really, really controlling. And when I wouldn't submit any longer to that, like I got kicked out. It was really sad because we had been a part of that church for 7 years, and they shunned us, like literally shunned us. Like other members of that congregation were no longer allowed to talk to us, and they just shut us out as if we never existed. And then posted
That's
stuff
incredible.
about pray for this family.
That is something. Isn't it unforgivable? Unfor-fucking-givable. These Christians have no humanistic traits. None. In fact, that's what I'm going to bring up to my friend when we have a conversation. My atheist turned Christian friend. Where's the humanism in Christianity? Listening to these stories, where is the humanism? Because this woman and her husband were not being treated like humans. They were being treated like chattel, property. Throw it up in the attic until we need it again. In the cellar, back of the garage somewhere. Just pack it in, shove it behind that shelf. That's Christianity.
On social media, because we were backsliding. So that kind of like, it actually came at a good time because I had already started to question a lot of things, which is what eventually got me kicked out of the church. I realized that not every church in Christianity is this extreme. I realized that. But that kind of gave me a way to kind of start thinking on my own. I ended up, eventually I just stopped going to church altogether. When got divorced from my ex-husband, because I was growing out of that like Christianity. I know Christians would sit here and say, oh, you were just backsliding, you allowed the devil to come in and deceive you, but that's like so much further than the truth. It's so wrong. I started to think about one day it came to me about heaven and hell, about like how it's like free will, like our free will if we want to follow God or not, give him our life, believe in him. You either do God's will or you go to hell and you burn for eternity and you're tormented, and all the other horror stories that they tell you about burning and being tortured and just for all of eternity. That is not free will, because that is given to us like, well, it's your choice. It's free will. You can choose to, follow God, or if you don't, then you will go to hell. To me, that is not free choice. That is a freaking ultimatum. If you tell me that I'm going to go, I have the choice, like I can either live or I can die, or I could live like happily, or I could, be tormented for the rest of my life for following my own wishes and my desires for all of eternity. To me, there's no choice in that. Like, what are you going to choose? Heaven or hell? Like, duh. That just encouraged me to, like, look into the whole topic of heaven and hell, right and wrong, like, differently. Like, who's to say what's right and what's wrong based on different cultures? And so what happened when I started to let go of my fears based on, like, if I start thinking outside the box, if I actually allow myself to say, okay, I don't believe in heaven or hell anymore. Once I would like get over that threshold of these little fears that I had, of these things like drilled in my head, I noticed this like whole new level of freedom that I would achieve, and this sense of like greater peace that would come on the inside of me. Because if I didn't have those fearful things holding me back, like, or, like, oh, I'm going to go to hell if I don't believe in God, or I'm a bad person, I'm so bad that I'm not worthy of God's love, but he loves us anyway. He's so holy and he's so righteous that we can't even stand in his presence unless we go through the blood of Jesus. But at the same time, I'm like trying to love myself and trust myself and, like accept all parts of me, but I can't even like follow my own desires because like my desires, anything outside of God's will is considered to be selfish or even sinful. And so it was just like, what the hell is the point even why did God create me so that I could worship him? Like, he's supposed to be this humble, loving, like so giving, gracious, generous God, but you created us just based on the fact that, so like you're hoping that I choose to have a relationship and worship you and you alone and live only by your will. Then why the hell did you give me desires of my own in the first place? And don't throw that free choice card because free will, because that's BS. And I realized too, like, yeah, it's about relationship.
Well, hold on a second, that was a pretty powerful statement. Again, another pattern. The patterns are prior trauma of some sort, bouncing into the arms of Jesus, learning what Christianity is all about, understanding that it's not what you thought it was, questioning, what the fuck am I doing in this cult under these rules which don't make sense, and then culminating in making a video on YouTube like this one for Sydney Winston to review and share.
So how much of a relationship can you have when you're kind of forced into it? Like, you can choose a relationship with me, or you can suffer for eternal damnation. I mean, to me, that's not a freaking relationship. Again. I also started to think about how, like, all the other religions, like even Buddhism, religions that were here way before Christianity, like how can they all be wrong? Like, if Christianity has the whole truth, how can they all be wrong and they're all going to hell? But only the Christians are right. And so that just didn't make sense to me. I have come to the conclusion, and now I can see, that no one has 100% the whole truth. No one religion does. We all have, even us people, there's like millions of little truths around. And we can grow in our truth when we come together and we bring our truths together and we sit face to face in dialogue and in conversation and relationship. That's when truths can grow. We're, like I said in the beginning of this video, we're all just trying to find our way. And I don't think the Bible or Christianity or any of that was ever meant to be so dogmatic or just taken so literal. I think that there is some extremely good stuff that is in the Bible. And I think that a person with a certain level of consciousness can take a lot from that Bible. But when you have people operating on a lower level of consciousness, trying to take that and make people form their lives around it and becoming so dogmatic about it, they really don't see it for what it's worth. And so I had that realization. I also started to have a problem with how divided within Christianity is. Like, they're just supposed to be this religion of unity, but yet there's over 10,000 Christian denominations.
I know, this is something that I can't figure out myself. I cannot figure that out. You got the Jews and you got the Muslims. The Jews have got their little sects and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. But they all essentially converge on the same central book, the Torah. Yet the Muslims, lots of problems, different sects, the Shia, the Sunni, the this, the that. But again, they all have this one text that they refer to, one in Arabic or the ones in Hebrew. The Christians are so fucking all over the place that there's thousands of denominations in the United States itself. Not only are these denominations in the United States, but they were created in the United States. You figure that from Europe there were maybe 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, different sects or cults of Christianity that landed on the Mayflower and succeeding boats and stuff, and now there's like 40,000. So Christianity is just a business, really. It's a business like almost like Coca-Cola. It's got no value. It's just marketing.
And so in other religions, that isn't the case. So in Buddhism, you don't have Buddhism, and then you don't have like 10,000 or even thousands or even hundreds of different branches off of that. You don't have Hinduism and then, 10,000. You don't have that in Hinduism. You don't have it in Taoism. It's only in Christianity. And so I just kind of had a problem with that. I started to really come into conflict with myself, because the more that I told you about the deep healing that I was having. So I'm having all this deep healing. I'm having all these realizations and self-actualizing about myself and learning about who I am as a person. Like, what's my potential? And then I started to really want to grow. Like, one of my biggest problems in my life is that I was always my own worst enemy. Like, I hated myself. And I wanted to start loving myself and accepting myself. And stop fighting against myself. But I had this conflict, because we're told that we can't trust our own hearts in Christianity because our hearts are deceitful. That we can only trust God and God's will for our life because He knows the grander plan. He knows and sees things on a bigger scale. And so we can't follow the desires of our hearts because those are selfish and they're sometimes sinful. And it's just it was just so freaking confusing. I'm like, okay, God, then why did you give me these desires? Oh, so that you could have free will. But that's not really free will if I choose my way and my will, and then I'm going to suffer an eternal damnation because of it. That's not free will. So these are all the thoughts and the questions that I started to have, and I started to allow myself to think. And like I said, the more that I allowed myself to ask these questions and to think and to research and to not be afraid to learn about different religions, not be afraid to open my mind to other things.
That's the crux of it. There she goes. She brought it up again. The thinking. I started to think for myself. I started to question and think critically, think rationally, not accept an answer that I don't understand. Smart person, very smart person. This is a human being, evolved human being with a brain that she's using. Now, Christians, by and large, have brains. We know that because they're humans. They're evolved humans. But they are instructing each other not to use their brain. Very few of them are out there to give instruction, even though every instruction is a malignant one. And the instruction are to listen to me, follow my word, never mind what reality says. That's Christianity. And it's malignant, like I say, it's evil. And why are people so gullible to this evil? Because they've been subjected to it from a young and vulnerable and impressionable age, which is a no-no. That's child abuse. Child abuse. That's why you have people having to make videos of their trauma, extricating themselves from the Christian cults of this world. It's an absolute shame.
Peace and freedom came, and I just felt myself just growing and being healed even. And it has been a freaking process to get my mind deprogrammed from all of the years of just stuff just being drilled into me. And I know that a lot of Christians, like, because I was one, I can speak, like, they meant well. You know, I think that they have a lot of, in Christianity, there's a lot of spiritual truths that can actually bring a lot of healing to people. But when it's taken so dogmatically, when it's taken so literal, when you try to like force others to, you know, to live by your convictions, like you're really missing the whole story. Oh, one thing about like realizing that when you need a savior and you need God to save you, you need God to give you the power to change, like all this stuff, you're putting all of that's when you see power as external. And I started to realize we are our own creator of our own reality. Like we, by our own choices that we make and decisions and things that, you know, we think about and we dwell on, we create the reality that we live in. And that is so powerful, to be able to step up in your own power and not have to be dependent upon an external source like God or Jesus to save you. But that when you have that realization that you can save yourself, or you don't maybe even need saving, but you can stand up in your own power and make things happen, because we are so powerful. We are so powerful when we stand up in our own sovereignty and we take control and we take responsibility of our own lives and stop playing that passive game where we put too much power on, or too much emphasis or dependence upon an external power. So anyways, that's where I am. I hope that this could be helpful to someone. Maybe if anything, it could just help you understand me more. There's a lot of you who've been following me for the whole time, for 2 years, and I genuinely appreciate that. I'm so very grateful for all of your support. I probably left a lot out. This is my first time ever sitting down trying to communicate it, you know, and I'm surprised, honestly, that I was even able to get out what I did. So, also forgot to mention that a very sweet woman from Finland, she sent me these earrings. She makes them out of old Finnish coins, and she found some that have my birth year on them. And these are actually the Finnish marks, what they used before they started using the euros. And they're so cool. They have my birth year on them. And I don't know, I really love them. And then she sent me this keychain here. And so if you want, you can go check her out.
Okay, that was YouTube channel is Wildwood Vagabond. That was Rachel, and she introduced herself to us in the beginning. Wildwood Vagabond. Well, folks, that was pretty much it. I wanted to introduce another, or add another deconversion story to the list. There's a playlist that I'm making of these, and I've got probably 15 left on the playlist before we probably all say that's enough here, even though there's like hundreds. But we'll see. Maybe it's something that'll carry on for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and maybe not. For those of you who are watching right now, and those of you who will watch and are watching right now, thank you so much. I do hope to see you again in the very, very near future, because that's when I will be back. Until then, be reasonable. Those of you who are watching right now, and those of you who will watch and are watching right now, thank you so much. I do hope to see you again in the very, very near future, because that's when I will be back.